This is a tweet that we received this past week. I don't know if you saw it, Brace.
Oh, I saw it.
Attention, hashtag Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy nuts. First of all, not a nut.
Second of all, we didn't do the conspiracy.
Yeah.
The Clintons did.
Stop all your boring ruminations and focus on this. Sure, my connection is vastly weaker than at real Donald Trump and at Bill Clinton, and I'm vastly less important, but you can weave more interesting fiction, and that's what you're all about. This is from Patrick Friedman, which, by the way, if you're listening, hello, Patrick.
Yes. Oh, he's definitely listening. Patrick Friedman is one of those strange oddities of the modern age. He is Milton Friedman's grandson. And he can suck my fucking dick. He
only got 29 likes on this bad boy.
Pussy. I found on his LinkedIn, which is the pedophiles platform, that he
really
was the board of directors and on the board of directors and was the director of fundraising for a little organization called Humanity Plus. Now, you might remember Humanity Plus from that little Epstein adventure into transhumanism. He donated a bunch of money to them.
Epstein did.
Yes. And he donated a bunch of money to them during the 3 years that our boy Patry was the director of fundraising. I pointed this out, or someone using our account pointed this out.
It wasn't just money, though. He paid the salary of one of the board of directors, correct?
Yes, correct.
I believe that's been reported in at least the New York Times, if not also the Washington Post.
Yes, and for once they got it correct.
Yes, the not failing New York Times,
so,
as I'm always saying.
The winning New York Times. Mm-hmm. So I pointed this out. I thought it was said another one of the strange-minded details in the case, which it is. You know, I don't think Patry is big enough of a player to go on the island. And he had a meltdown. It was totally insulting.
He was like tweeting repeatedly at us.
He should be honored to be connected to Jeffrey Epstein. It erases it makes it so the connection to his grandfather, Milton Friedman, a pedophile, is
allegedly
a pedophile. Yeah, it has been alleged by others that he is a pedophile.
No,
that he and I called him a neo-reactionary. He says he's not a neo-reactionary. On his Wikipedia, there is a section that says neo-reactionary views.
Well, he doesn't identify as a neo-reactionary anymore.
Well, I'm sorry, this snowflake doesn't just get to identify as whatever he wants. I'm calling him as I sees him. That stems from a Facebook post he made where he calls for a less racist red pill.
Yes, actually, a fun little fact about our friend Patrick is that he also ran a blog called PUA for LTR. Mm-hmm. Do you know what that stands for, Brace?
Pickup artist for what's Lana Del Raytheon?
Pickup artist for long-term relationships.
Okay,
so this is where he posted about how it was important for married men to be red-pilled because they didn't want their wives to be like scoldy, annoying wives, and they had to be alpha. Yeah. And pickup artist style.
But he's now actually a proponent of monogamy.
I mean, they all are. All those guys, Roosh. You saw how Roosh is now like full Eastern Orthodox or whatever?
Yes. Well, I mean, I welcome Mr. Friedman to the realm of monogamy. And he can monogamously suck my dick for the rest of his life.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Come in. Jeffrey Epstein.
Welcome to TrueAnon.
You always get to do it. Can I do it?
Yeah.
Wait, how do you do it?
Welcome. It's okay. Like, welcome. Do that one first.
Okay. Welcome to TrueAnon.
Kind of stuttered on the first syllable.
Welcome to TrueAnon.
Welcome to TrueAnon, the only podcast that is a podcast about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, wow. Podcast twice in one sentence. Let me try it again. This needs some male energy. The only podcast which is firing Liz Franzak as a host after this
if.
episode. Hi, I'm Brace.
Hi, Brace. I'm Liz.
Hello, Liz. And we are joined by producer Young Chomsky and a mysterious man who's smoking a cigarette and jacking off.
That's not happening. How are you doing?
I've been in the mountains for quite a while now, basically since last episode. And so I have been out of Epstein sort of zone of mind control. I'm back.
Are you
and
back? You're back
miserable.
in it?
Yeah.
Speaking of, there's a lot of stuff to go over.
First off, fuck Larry Celona. Oh, wait.
Oh, wait.
First off, it's true.
What?
Cameras.
Yes. So the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos paper, just announced that investigators scrutinizing video outside Epstein's cell find some footage unusable. Brace, what a surprise.
I, for one, am shocked. Nobody has suggested that this might happen. Everybody thought these were going to get crystal clear footage of Jeffrey Epstein's cell being not entered by anyone under any circumstances.
Right, and him just kneeling down really hard, committing
Yeah.
suicide, which we all know is what happened.
And, and the Post, somehow notes in this article that, yes, Epstein's hyoid bone was broken, and that usually appears in homicides, not suicides, which, it would really help us if we could learn that there was no possibility of homicide there, right?
Well, what's funny is it says it was not immediately clear why some video footage outside Epstein's cell is too flawed for investigators to use, or what is visible in the usable footage. Yeah, okay. It's not immediately clear? I think it's pretty clear.
So, I don't get it. Did the camera just degrade? Like, did it start disintegrating? What, did someone spill something on it? It's a fucking camera. It works.
It says at least one camera in the hallway
Yeah. Well,
had
it's
footage that is unusable, although clearer footage was captured in the area.
in the area.
In the area.
That's super vague.
So it's like this is, I keep saying, but it's like exactly like on The Wire, where it's just like, there's no footage.
There's no footage.
No, it's like, whoopsies, the one time we did it, we turned the cameras around.
We're gonna see something on loop of a hallway that could be anywhere, and we're not gonna see anybody.
It is unclear whether the flaw in the taping affected a limited duration of the footage or whether it was a chronic problem in the beleaguered Manhattan facility. Oh, the beleaguered Manhattan facility.
I know, that's the thing. Is it's just like they're gonna try to position Jeffrey Epstein as like a sick man who needs help. They're gonna try to position this as like, oh, it's just we need more money for the MCC.
Well, yeah, it's understaffed. As we know, that's the reason why no one saw it, because understaffed.
Yeah.
And now, the infrastructure's rotting.
We need a boost of money in here.
Yeah. So I don't buy it.
So I've actually been thinking about something too. You think they make Anthony Weiner do the hits now?
What do you mean?
Well, he owes them, right? He owes the Clintons. I think that
don't
he's
think
their
he
man.
could.
I think he could. He can like slip through bars and stuff. He's a skinny man.
I know, but he's kind of dumb.
Yeah. Agreed. What else do we got? Larry Celona. I look like Larry Celona too.
Who is that, Brace?
Larry Celona is a reporter for the New York Post, owned by Rupert Murdoch. Before we get into this, let me tell you a little story about Rupert Murdoch and Ghislaine Maxwell's father. When Robert Maxwell, Mossad asset Robert Maxwell, first bought his newspapers, or first started constructing his newspaper empire, he had on the top of his building a helicopter landing pad installed. And that was pretty rare at the time. And what he would do is he would fly over Rupert Murdoch's office on the way to meetings, specifically, like go out of his way to basically buzz Murdoch's office to be like, I can travel by helicopter anywhere where I want, and you can't. And it must bring Murdoch so much joy to just like help out his old rival's daughter like this.
I mean, so what is Larry Do you want to give a little introduction to Larry Celona?
Larry Celona is a reporter at the sometimes failing, sometimes winning New York Post, who has broken quite a few stories.
Yes, the Post was the first to leak Epstein's suicide.
And we'd like to shout out Twitter account user Mooncult for collating a lot of this information.
Yeah, that's a good follow, you guys.
So when the Post first came out with the article, because as you remember, they were the original people who had the Ghislaine Maxwell In and Out exclusive photos. They reported that the regular diner or daily regular recognized her and asked her who she was, and she said, she admitted her identity, and then he took this picture with a really fancy camera.
Yes.
Of course, that selection was later deleted.
Right.
That in itself would be like, okay, this guy's a bit of a hack. He was passed along some story, and he sort of just, he put it out kind of gormlessly, right? Unless you take into consideration that Mr. Celona was also the man who had the Epstein death picture.
Not only that, but this is where it gets even weirder. And we probably are going to go into this a little bit more next week. But Larry Celona was also involved in the filming of Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes, he had the newspaper. He was the author of the New York Post article in that.
Not only that, but he was hired by Stanley Kubrick as a consultant on the film.
Jesus Christ.
So let's circle back on this a little bit. Mm-hmm. So just to zoom out a little bit and give everyone the full picture. What we're saying is the New York Post reporter, Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, Larry Celona, the man who reported not just Ghislaine Maxwell's whereabouts in Los Angeles, including the photograph, not just the attempted suicide on our good friend Jeffrey and the MCC by Nicholas Tartaglione. Mm-hmm. Not just Jeffrey Epstein's alleged suicide in the MCC. Mm-hmm. Also was a consulting journalist on Stanley Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut, which was said to have revealed some things that perhaps some very famous people did not want revealed surrounding certain types of sex cults.
So why was Celona brought in on this, do you think?
Well, I don't know.
Do you think perhaps that the people that Kubrick had this sort of weird relationship with insisted on his presence? Or do you think that Celona was just sort of placed to be around Kubrick?
So it's going to get even crazier, Brace.
Oh my God.
When Kubrick died,
yeah,
Celona was the first one to break the story.
What? Bullshit.
Yeah.
So this Celona guy, it's difficult to find information about him, but he's been working at the New York Post for a long time, and he has let me just say, quite a few articles out.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and this is the kind of stuff that makes you feel like Homeland, like you're putting all these little pins in a board and connecting all the dots. But we're gonna probably get into more of him later.
Yes, we'll talk about we'll get do a deep dive into Mr. Kubrick's legacy in his last film.
Yes, but that was a really weird little thing we found out this week.
Yeah. What do we got next?
You also were telling me that you've been looking into some weird stuff.
So first, let's say Zorro Ranch brings to mind immediately a pair of sweatpants that Mr. Epstein owns. And Liz, you discovered this earlier this week,
yes,
right?
Yes. We were looking at Jeff Fit Pics, as I like to call it.
He is swag.
Yeah, he's got a good look, and that it gives me no pleasure to report this.
Is that athleisure?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of like norm. He's like a kind of a normcore.
Yeah. He's Brooklyn and Manhattan.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if he Supreme uses his mugshot in their next ad campaign or something.
Oh, that'd be excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so his sweatpants.
Yeah, so he was a big fan of the monogram.
Yeah.
and he had sweatpants that said Zorro down the leg. Mm-hmm. But what's the crazier ones is he had another pair of sweatpants that said LSJ
For Little St. James.
for Little St. James down the leg.
There's no Great St. James ones? GSJ?
I didn't see.
I think LSJ was
But-
his baby.
I kind of wanted them. I saw them and I was like, oh, those are kind of cool.
You think we could bootleg
Do you
them?
think that's fucked up if I wore something like
Well, no, it's sort of like, you're a woman who will never have sex with Jeffrey Epstein on account of your age.
that? Brace!
What? You're too old.
I'm 20 years old.
He likes 16-year-olds. Why am I in trouble for this? I think it would be.
Don't call me old, Brace.
I'm not calling you old. I'm calling you too old
No.
for Jeffrey Epstein. It's not an insult. It's like, so he was basically, the man is fitted in straight Epstein wear.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah. He also, it's in front of the manse in New York. He also had JE just on the wall. It's kind of like tacky. Like it's like putting your name just everywhere.
Like Trump.
Yeah. Oh, it's a total Trump thing. Just like branding everything Jeff.
It would have been awesome if it was just Jeff.
Yeah, I know, because it's such a stupid fucking name. Apologies to all Jeffs out there. And Epstein is just like not a like cool or
If
like
your name's Jeff, change your name.
yeah, to Brace or Liz. So yes,
But that's not what I was getting at. You told me that you've been a little pizza pilled.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, so let me be clear what I mean by pizza pilled. Pizzagate is real, right? But it's also not real. Like the whole like premise of Pizzagate, which is that like Hillary Clinton has her own ring, blah blah blah. It's being run out of the basement of this pizza restaurant. That was like not real. But all the facts that were reported in some of these Pizzagate websites that I may or may not have been looking at, well, they are real. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So what I'm saying is Pizzagate's not real, but all the facts in Pizzagate are real. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of those facts have led me to examine Zorro Ranch in, let's say, greater detail.
The sex farm.
Yeah, well, the sex hacienda.
So, our astute listeners might remember that we talked about his New Mexico compound on an episode. And this is what he called Zorro Ranch, where he was planning on a large-scale, let's call it, insemination project.
Absolutely would call it a large-scale insemination project.
And Brace has been doing a little bit of digging into some interesting sources.
Yeah, so one of the original real estate agents that he used to try to find him some property in New Mexico, he didn't end up going with her, but she reported that she looked around, presented with a bunch of places, and then came back to the place where he was staying, knocked on the door, and he answered it, and he was flanked by a bevy of young girls.
Epstein was.
She assumed they were his daughters.
Why is everyone... This is what everyone says. This is not a good, like, alibi.
You can't just say that someone's got a bunch of daughters.
Who has like 10 daughters that are all the same age?
And having sex with him. Well, I mean, it's New Mexico. Who knows what they get up to in the desert there. Yeah, so when I went to this is what she says. Her name is French. When I went to the door where he was staying, it was filled with teenage girls. I just assumed they were his daughters. I didn't think much about it at the time. So it was actually filled with teenage girls.
What does that mean, filled?
It's a room.
What is this, like the Von Trapp family?
filled with teenage girls. So we've gone over the ranch a little bit before. To remind everybody, there is the living room, according to the plans, is 2,100 square feet, which is larger than the average house in Santa Fe. There's an elevator, 8 bathrooms, 4 fireplaces, 3 bedrooms, a pool cabana, a 30-foot tree a 30-tree fruit orchard, and a 1-acre organic garden.
Oh, what's organic? That's nice.
There was also plans. He took out permits to build an airstrip on some of the land outside of his property. Once there were some questions raised about it from the people that were dealing with it in the government, he withdrew those plans and then built the airstrip on like the area surrounding his house.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he just was like, oh.
He
just did it anyway.
Well, I think he just wanted a little less scrutiny on it.
Got it.
So Epstein's Ranch, it is equidistant.
Oh, this is where we're going to get a little weird, you guys.
Well, I'm not going to go too into it now, but I can.
I want you to.
Equidistant from Roswell, New Mexico, and Aztec, New Mexico.
Okay, everyone knows Roswell.
Aztec is sort of a similar incident to Roswell that occurred around the same time. There was a crash. There was witnesses. In this case, though, one of the witnesses turned out not to be so reliable, and the other witness possibly similar. But there are credible reports from ex-CIA agents that the CIA visited these two men and encouraged them to keep telling their stories.
Oh.
So the UFO thing. So first of all, UFOs are real.
Okay, we're getting a little weird, you guys.
UFOs
Stay with
are
us.
real because what does UFO means? UFO means unidentified flying object.
Yeah, it's just when you can't tell what something is.
Exactly. And there's UFOs all the time. The Air Force has studied them. It's admitted. Sometimes there's things that people listeners to this should look up the Phoenix fucking lights because something happened there. Phoenix lights was a little incident where there was a bunch of lights over Phoenix. Thousands of people saw them. Some people described them as being like several battleships fused together. They blocked out the stars wherever they moved. It changed shapes and sizes. The governor at the time, Fife Symington, saw these lights. This was in 1997. Saw them flying over, and at some points they formed a sort of triangular shape missing the bottom bar. And he called a press conference, and he was like, "Oh my God, I saw that too. Like, I want to figure out what's going on. Like, this freaked me out as well." A few days later, he calls another press conference where he's like, "We have caught the culprit," and he brings out his chief of staff dressed as a space alien and sort of made a fool of it. And people were furious at him. He wasn't reelected. About a decade later, on like CNN, I believe, he was like, "Hey, my biggest regret is actually really not pursuing that. After I had the first press conference, I was visited by the government and they told me to make this go away and to make light of it. So that's what I did. And it's one of my biggest regrets because I know what I saw."
Wow.
Anyways, back to Epstein.
Little detour.
Yeah. So I don't know what the Phoenix lights were, but they were unidentified flying objects. Back to Epstein. He is equidistant between these two, let's say, sites of interest. In New Mexico, and so the Southwest in general is sort of been the focus of a lot of this alien stuff, but also you have Area 51, you have Los Alamos, which we'll go into that a little more in a second, and you have all these various Trinity missile testing site. You have these various spots where something happened, but no one can agree on it, and now nobody talks about it, or at least nobody talks about it in like realistic terms. So with the sort of UFO thing, it's come out 100 times over that the government, yes, was involved in propagating these stories to distract people from what was going on at Kirkland Air Force Base, to distract from testing the U-2 spy plane. And in fact, in Roswell, they say that the crash object there was a balloon they were testing, which had microphones on it to catch sound waves from atomic bomb blast in the Soviet Union. They were doing like a test flight before they flew over the Soviet Union. Oh. Well, I mean, that sounds like a bunch of bullshit for me.
Yeah, that kind of sounds a little funny.
If they were Greys.
Wait, Greys?
Greys, so you know the Take Me to Your Dealer alien? Imagine him
yeah,
without
little green guy.
Little green guy. Well, they're gray. The green is sort of an artist's interpretation. They are gray. They sort of have this soft triangle head, these large eyes.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes, like me. And these sort of slit mouths and these kind of thin limbs.
Right.
They look vaguely humanoid, right? I mean, they're bipeds. They've got four limbs. They got hands and stuff. Think about this. if you were trying to get to this planet from the nearest solar system, it would take you 10,000 light years, right? Mm-hmm. So you couldn't send a carbon-based life form. And in these ships that people have found, what they claim were ships, if we're taking them at their word, there were no bathrooms, there were no facilities, there were pretty bare bones in there.
Okay.
So to fly creatures, these hundreds of thousands of years or whatever, would be quite, how are you going to eat? Where are you going to go to the bathroom? All this stuff will be much easier to fly some sort of cyborg brain out there.
Right.
And if you were trying to, for instance, if you let's take it from our perspective. If we saw a planet with life on it and we wanted to send something there to observe it, you would try to send something that looked like those life forms, right? Mm-hmm. So it could be whatever these gas beings or whatever beings that are first observed us from whatever far-flung solar system saw us. They couldn't really reproduce what we look like because we're probably very different from them. They made these little guys, sent them down to Earth as sort of like cyborgs to observe us. You
Okay.
don't seem convinced.
No, I'm with you. What's funny is that you just reminded me of one of the post-human projects,
What's that?
which is what they call it's kind of part of their super longevity program, or that's one of the prongs or whatever.
Yeah, increasing one's lifespan to a...
Right. And so the idea is that you would download, that we'll get to a point where we can just download our consciousness to a type of silicon substrate
Yeah.
that would then just be fed into either a computer or a robot. I mean, those are basically the same things. And that is how your mind and your consciousness could live forever.
So it's pretty plausible that perhaps some beings on another planet had a similar idea and actually went through with it.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, this proves the existence of God, so I'm not sure why you would be tripping about this.
Okay, but let's bring it back to New Mexico.
Epstein. So there are a lot of strange things in New Mexico. One of the things that I noticed on his ranch was a long building, a sort of dorm-looking building.
Dorm?
Well, yeah, possibly for staff or ...
Staff, quotation marks staff.
Exactly. People who
Lady
was
staff.
perhaps paying or perhaps maybe was not paying, maybe had their
Right.
passports, with bars on the windows.
Ugh.
There was only one building with bars on the windows, and it is this building. And this looks like the kind of building that you don't want to get put in.
Ugh.
Yeah. When he's home, his neighbors would say, and I find this to be a really sort of arresting image, he comes home about once every month and a half, every 2 months. Mm-hmm. And the lights from his hacienda would blot out the stars. They were so bright.
That's so bright.
Yeah, well, light pollution's, it can get pretty crazy. But out there, it's a really sparse area. I invite you to look at it on a satellite map. Search Zorro Ranch Road or 49 Zorro Ranch Road, and then you can kind of go up into the little foothills.
It's pretty creepy looking.
It is.
It's in the same way that Little St. James, the compound on Little St. James, just kind of doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
with the temple and with the sundial at Little St. James, there's something very odd and off-putting about Zorro Ranch.
And yeah, speaking of that sundial, there is a symbol on Zorro Ranch that's almost like a target. And again, I invite our listeners to look this up. There's a square, and in that square there are 4 sort of like circles cut up into quadrants. And in the middle, there is a little bit of, I don't know what you would call it, scrub brush in a circle. Overall, the thing looks like shit. It looks like no one waters it or no one planted anything. And there is green, fresh grass nearby, so it's not like it's not available to them. There's something about the center of that target and the fact that it is a target that gives me a feeling. That feeling is the same kind of feeling I get when I look at the temple and at that sundial. There is something here that is happening that we don't know about and that certainly investigators from the government aren't going to tell us about. It should be noted that in Epstein's parcel of land, there is another parcel owned by the state. And in that parcel, which again is in the middle of Jeffrey Epstein's land that he owns, is a circular building. I think there could be something underground here,
I mean, I think that's,
without a doubt.
yeah.
Yeah, there's another. Sorry, again, I have to go tell about a little something. There is sort of a long-standing urban legend, or actually, I guess you could call it ex-urban legend, about what's called Dolce bases underneath. I don't know why you're laughing. This is a real thing to
I
some
know.
people, which are underground bases.
Military bases.
Military bases, but in the vein of Area 51, sort of secret military bases, where a particular one in northern New Mexico was taken over by Greys. And as reported in The Independent, there was a firefight between Delta Force and the Greys that left 60 human beings and an untold amount of aliens dead.
I'm sorry, The Independent?
Yeah, well, they were somewhat skeptical of the claims. But
Now, here, wait, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Because I like to get weird.
what do you got? We're gonna edit that out.
Is this in any way connected, these military bases, to the Denver airport?
I mean, without a doubt. I'm not a Denver airport expert, although, I mean, it is unquestionable that there's something going on there.
Yeah.
I think we got to get Governor Ventura on the show. But I'm sure it is. I mean, if you build one tunnel, you build a million.
I mean, it's right there.
It's right there. In Colorado, the Colorado-New Mexico border is actually where this rumored base is supposed to be.
See, it's all coming together.
So the thing is about this base rumor is that, without a doubt, there are underground bases. I mean, there are like proven underground bases,
Right, yeah.
in America, like NORAD and all that shit. I think just like the UFO thing was to throw off the scent from the CIA's actual activities by having this fantastical story, or like QAnon was created to throw people off the scent of this story. I think those underground bases in the northern New Mexican and Coloradan deserts are actually covering up the real underground bases elsewhere in the state.
This is like a meta.
It's
like double base.
Yeah. It's like being, oh man, I shit my pants, when you actually piss them.
No.
So everyone's looking for the doo-doo while the pee is sliding down your leg.
praise.
Well, it's true. You've done that.
Don't say that.
Okay, I won't say that. She's done that.
No.
So I think it's entirely possible that Epstein in conjunction with some other people had possibly something going on underground here. It's interesting to note too that elsewhere on the bordering his property is a solar station. And astute readers might remember the mysterious closure of a solar observatory in New Mexico. And I'm reading for NPR here. A solar observatory in New Mexico reopened Monday after being closed by authorities for 10 days, which spawned national interest and speculation into the causes of its evaluations. This was in September of last year. They kind of make light of it and say aliens weren't involved, but a solar station was closed elsewhere in New Mexico for 10 days. What the fuck is going on there, Liz?
I mean, I can't tell you.
The FBI is refusing to tell us what's going on, says Sheriff Benny House. We've got people up there that requested us to stand by while they evacuated. Nobody would really elaborate on any circumstances as to why the FBI was up there and what their purpose is. Nobody will say. There were also Black Hawk helicopters. And this is not like some guy saw a Black Hawk. This is like reported in the news that there were Black Hawk helicopters going around the solar station. Sounds a little funny to me.
Yeah,
There's some strange stuff going on in New Mexico, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, just to no comment from me and the Peanut Gallery.
So we're also pretty close here at Zorro Ranch to a little place called Los Alamos.
Oh, you've mentioned Los Alamos before.
Well, something pretty famous happened there, right?
Yes.
So what happened at Los Alamos, Liz?
Los Alamos is the home of the Manhattan Project, the laboratory that built the atom bomb and then tested it
Yes. Pretty
at the Trinity site.
Trinity site. Wow, very close to Epstein's ranch.
How close?
I think it's like 110 miles away. 111 miles away from the Trinity missile site. Los Alamos has a little Epstein connection. And that connection is, of course, like many things, through one Robert Maxwell.
Oh, gosh. He's back.
He's back.
Robert
Raring to
Maxwell,
go.
again, father of Ghislaine Maxwell.
And it's funny, actually, I heard him described as the socialist Rupert Murdoch.
What?
Yeah. Well, because he was a Labor Party MP.
Oh, yeah, he was.
And
You're right.
he was from sort of that border region of like Czechoslovakia, Hungary, whatever, where actually it was passed, like the villages from was passed through control from the Austria-Hungary to Czechoslovakia, and then later, of course, Germany.
Sure. Their
And
first
his
target.
mother apparently was of good Jewish socialist stock, and he kind of kept like pretending he was for a little while. He later, of course, dropped that. So Maxwell, on behalf of Mossad, was bribing Texas Republican Senator John Tower to the tune of $200,000 a year.
For what?
He asked John Tower to advise him. Mr. Tower, of course, advise just means like, I need a way to bribe you.
What
right?
year is this in?
This is during the Reagan era.
Okay.
And John Tower promised him, if you pay me, the doors are open, like to anywhere. Robert Maxwell decided to test that out by opening one of the hardest and most closed doors in America.
The door to my bedroom.
Yes. And he
Wait,
got
no.
in and had sex with you.
No.
And then you gave birth to Ghislaine Maxwell.
No.
But no, yeah. So it is. I remembered something.
What?
You turned me down for a date like 12 years ago. What? Yes.
Wait, really?
At the Knockout, yeah.
I don't remember this.
This is my revenge.
Wait, what? When did that happen?
I can't really remember it. I was like, wait.
What? Did you ask me?
So now with that on the tip of my mind,
Tip of your mind.
Tip of my mind. Robert Maxwell used his connection to John Tower to get into Los Alamos to sell them Promise software.
Promise.
Promise, Promis. It was
Yes.
developed by Inslaw, and it was as a case management software.
That's what they call it.
for
Case
law
management. Yeah.
enforcement.
It was Promise was the first, if I understand correctly, and please mansplain to me if I have this wrong, which I probably do. But it was the first sort of like cross agency, like what you call quote unquote management software. So between the CIA, FBI, NSA, DOD, a way to kind of have a central database of all their sort of information and cases. And it was in a lot of ways, supposedly, the precursor to the PRISM program, which, of course, famously was unearthed by one Edward Snowden not too long ago.
A CIA agent we like. Could be. Well, the Promise is, there is a lot of promise to talk about. And in fact, it's one of the longest running scandal in U.S. history.
Yeah, it was a huge scandal.
Long story short, Maxwell got into Los Alamos. Maxwell sells Los Alamos Laboratory the Promise software. And famously, this software had a backdoor.
Oh.
A backdoor that could be exploited by people who had the right technology, which at the time is only, I think Israel did, or I know Israel did.
Right.
But he later may have accidentally sold that backdoor to some other countries too.
Interesting. What countries do you think?
Soviet Union and China, which actually is cool. Actually, China at the time was capitalist, let's say, counter-revolution going on there,
Right.
soft counter-revolution, which they won, and the Soviet Union was on its way to dissolution.
Right.
But
Not the best time in either country.
no. But of course, we still staunchly support them, even now.
Yes, Mr. G, if you're listening.
Yes, come. Subscribe to the Patreon. It's so I'm sure that when Ghislaine was flying down in her private plane with Mr. Maxwell to the little private airport on with Mr. Epstein on the little private airport on Epstein's property, she had a twinge of ancestral memory of her father inside the hallowed halls of those laboratory, selling them secrets which he would then exploit.
This is just, it kind of explodes the brain. All of these different connections and everything crossing each other, and it's like the same names in the same places, and it starts to make you just feel insane.
Yes. Well, here's another little thing to blow your mind out a little bit. Epstein's Ranch is pretty close to Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's about 25 miles away. In Santa Fe, New Mexico is a little institute we talked about before.
Which one?
The Santa Fe Institute.
Wait, really? Is that the name?
The name is the Santa Fe. We talked about this before.
That was so anticlimactic.
Yeah. Little Epstein gave a lot of money to them, which they're now like, oh, he just gave us money and asked for nothing in return. They have a lot of like really out there scientists. It's that kooky Southwest science shit where like who knows what the fuck they're talking about.
Like pottery.
Yeah,
And
I found the connection.
tapestries.
Yeah, well, a little more advanced than that, like metaphysics or megaphysics.
Yes, I know.
or-
I'm teasing.
However, one of the main, let's say, public faces of this institution is one Cormac McCarthy.
I forgot about this. This is so weird.
Yes. You know what another one is? Pierre Omidyar.
Wait, okay. Oh, boy. Before we get into...
You want to tackle Cormac first?
Yeah, let's talk McCormick first because this
Pedophile.
is a...
No? Everyone's saying no. Not. That's just... You can't just because you like someone doesn't mean
I
they're not
never said I liked... I mean, he's fine.
He's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone read The Road.
Oprah Book Club.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's no country for old men.
Yeah. In
yeah,
fact,
well-
this is Yes Country for young girls.
Yeah. Okay, so tell everyone about Cormac McCarthy, who, by the way, this is like in interviews with Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, there's like a long,
video.
rambling video of Mr. McCarthy where he's just like talking. It seems like he's being held at gunpoint talking about how great and advanced the Santa Fe Institute is. It's a very strange connection because you don't think of him as much of like a hard science man.
No, and they hired him to, what was it? Like basically like write copy for them
Essentially, yeah.
and like do like brand work.
Yes. Which means it just goes to prove everyone's a whore.
But it's also like so funny because when you're talking about like, man, we really got to like rebrand and really get like a great voice for our organization. It's like you choose Cormac McCarthy. It's like that's the most dystopian, apocalyptic thing I've ever heard in my life.
I am looking at a video right now on Oprah's website. Where does Cormac McCarthy eat lunch? And short answer is the Santa Fe Institute. Yeah.
On Oprah's website?
If you look up Cormac McCarthy and Santa Fe Institute, there are like 100 videos.
Okay.
He is, let's say, close to the Institute.
What's the deal with Pierre Omidyar?
Pierre Omidyar is also a huge financial backer of the Institute. There's like an Omidyar like fellowship there. And Pierre Omidyar also runs like a multinational intelligence network too, and is like really close to the Modi regime.
Yeah, dude, I don't know if our listeners know that much about Pierre Omidyar.
We should probably talk about him in length at some point, but Pierre is not your friend.
Yeah, perhaps after we talk to Glenn Greenwald.
Yeah, maybe after Glenn's on. Yeah, The Intercept's cool.
Yeah,
they
do good work.
They do good work. Pierre Omidyar does not.
Yeah, no.
He is like Soros on steroids, basically.
Yeah.
Not the kind of guy that you want. If I had an institute, there would be no Pierre Omidyar fellowship there. So it's just another one of those weird little things. And of course, Epstein is super tied into this. I mean, he was close to this institute. It's one of those weird, hippie, kind of like Feynman, you know, like we're smoking dope and talking physics kind of thing.
Right, but then they do like really, really crazy bad stuff.
Exactly. New Mexico, of course, hasn't been reported on as much. He did traffic girls there, but in his little black book, he also had names under the tag Massages, New Mexico. Linda, Nikki, Sabrina, Diana. And I wonder how many other girls out there.
Yeah.
Without numbers.
There was just an article in the New York Times about the two sisters
Yes.
who we were reading from some of their lawsuit against Ghislaine. It was particularly against Ghislaine, I think.
Yeah.
Or they named Ghislaine as the primary person they were suing. Big story about their time at Zorro Ranch.
Yeah. And it's definitely, you should read it. Do not read it on, incognito mode, because they'll catch you. But it's certainly, it's interesting to note that he bought the property in 93 from Bruce King, who was the governor.
Yes.
And whose son was later Attorney General.
Yeah, that's something that's very interesting that keeps coming up in a lot of these Epstein stories. And this is the same that some research that's been done on the sort of connections and Little St. James is that you find out like the governor of New Mexico is helping him out, the Attorney General.
The wife of the governor of the Virgin Islands is on a board of the company that he owns, which is like not a real company.
Yeah, I've heard from some boots that actually she was one of his assistants for a while. So it's all of these places, like people in the government absolutely knew and what was going on, and that's also a way that these compounds are kind of protected. Mm-hmm. And by law enforcement. Yeah,
absolutely. And he wasn't, when he went to New Mexico, he sent, there's actually, you can look these up. He has little emails he would send like, hey, I'm on the sex offender list. I'm coming there. He wasn't actually on the sex offender list in New Mexico, though.
Yeah,
it was the only state he was not on.
Yeah, someone helped him out there.
Mm-hmm. And just like someone tried to help him out in New York and get his status downgraded.
Yeah, I wonder why that was.
Yes. So anyways, if you live in New Mexico, go to that ranch immediately. The FBI still hasn't raided it. I'm sure it's been cleaned and acid sprayed and bleached from top to bottom, but you can uncover something and you can get in the tunnels, my man. I'm talking directly to you. You can get in.
Watch out for those aliens.
Yeah. So this motherfucker, Stuart Pivar.
Stuart Pervert?
Stuart Pervert. First of all, who is this bitch? Taking care of Epstein every day. Hanging Mr. Epstein in his cell.
Stuart Pivar. Pivar?
Pivar.
It's crazy.
So yeah,
it's so great because every week it seems like some new totally insane interview comes out about Jeffrey Epstein.
It's crazy. You think like, oh man, these people are like, again, we talked about this. Like these people are. Has to be someone smart pulling the strings here because these people are all fucking imbeciles.
I mean, I think everyone might just be really stupid.
No, that's what they want us to think.
So this is, of course, what we're talking about is this bombshell of an interview in Mother Jones.
Mm-hmm. That classic socialist magazine, Mother Jones. Which is crazy because they have a pedophile on staff. Kevin Drum.
Is he? Allegedly.
Allegedly a pedophile. It's been said in comment sections, which are deleted. But
what's the woman's name?
What's her name? Claire
Jeffries. Yeah, she's a local, San Francisco.
I know. We used to kind of fuck around, and I don't really want to.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Well, what? I don't really want to bring her name up on the show.
All right. So this article is called "Jeffrey Epstein, My Very, Very Sick Pal." So
Pivar is a fucking insane person.
Well, he's 89 years old.
Yeah, but he's been insane like for decades, though.
He's an art collector and, quote, a controversial scientist. And I think that we need to just highlight scientist here.
The reason he's so controversial is because he doesn't believe in like regular Darwinian evolution. He has this like theory that he came up is where we all came from like donut shaped beings.
It's like tubular.
Yeah, it's Tuibar or something. It's like a word I've never seen before. But because he's just making all this up, he put out this book describing this theory, and I read a review of it, and the guy said, this book is not fit for a clown college.
He said it was evolution for balloon animals.
Yeah, and he like says that like, yeah, it's a donut shaped. This is Mr. Pivar's hypothesis. It comes from a donut shaped, and then he sort of like starts drawing the donut shape morphing into like a pair of legs, and that's how we got legs.
It like splits off in legs. I mean, it's totally insane.
Totally insane, but correct.
So he also founded the New York Academy of Art alongside Andy Warhol.
Another alleged, you know what I mean.
Artist,
Yeah.
scientist. And Epstein also was on the board later on of the...
Shocking.
I know. So these guys were good friends. And I guess Pivar was at like a bunch of those like weird science summits and knows Steven Pinker and Alan Dershowitz and all the same guys that keep coming up.
It's funny though, he keeps repeatedly mentioning that he never went to the Isle of Babes.
Yeah, that's what he keeps calling it, the Isle of Babes.
He seems to like be under the very like
such a dorky nickname.
I know, it's such a like a I'm a scientist. I mean, look this guy up and you'll understand why he calls it the Isle of Babes.
Sex dorks. This guy does not seem like he...
This guy is not boinking.
No.
There's like the neurological thing going on with this guy where
it's like a tubular donut down there.
Yeah, he's got nothing but a donut. He seems rather confused during the whole story, like or during the whole interview, like he doesn't exactly realize what he's doing. Like
Yeah, he seems like he's getting confused. So I think what we should do, Brace, is we should just, because our listeners love this so much, and we do like to give you guys a little treat, I think we should just read from some of it.
Okay, what part?
What do you think?
I'm a Mother Jones reporting this. So how did you guys meet?
One day in the early 70s, a friend of mine brought me to Jimmy Goldsmith's mansion on the east side, and I walked in, and there in the grandiose lobby was a grand piano, and there was somebody playing the piano with great virtuosity, and it was Jeffrey Epstein. That's how I met him. Did you know that Jeffrey was a piano virtuoso?
I heard that he played the piano. I never heard the word virtuoso.
Yeah, he was a major talent among his other talents.
So who's Jimmy Goldsmith?
Okay, Jimmy Goldsmith, funny you should ask, I believe he was a member of the European Parliament, actually. But he's like a major, like moneymaker, tycoon, politician.
A goldsmith.
The Goldsmiths actually were, funny enough, a like rival family to the Rothschilds.
Really?
It's like an old school aristocracy.
My people beat him out. Fuck you, Jimmy.
Yeah, he also, I believe he was like kind of a right hand, like financier. Financier man to A1 Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, old Maggie.
Yeah, so
Pedophile.
yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's a big guy.
I'm sure he's British.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, all right. I guarantee there's some echoes of yew tree in this, if you know what I mean.
Actually, he's French and British.
Well, okay, yeah, definitely not echoes of yew tree. This man should have been caught. So I've got to ask right off the bat. What's your take about the current scandal, the allegations?
Listen, I'm in mourning for Jeffrey.
I understand.
The way he died is very immaterial.
Do you think he would be the type of person to take his own life?
Those things are trivia to me with respect to Jeffrey and what he was and all that kind of stuff. That's not the issue.
I understand.
That's not of any interest, really. Jeffrey was an important person. The detail of he happened to kill himself is completely immaterial and profoundly sad.
What do you think you know about Jeffrey that the broader public might not know about, who he is as a person?
Everything, everything, everything.
So you don't think he's guilty of any of the allegations against him right now?
Let's put it this way. What's the difference between the punishment which befalls a murderer and a serial murderer? It's the same. If Jeffrey was found guilty of fooling around with one 16-year-old trollop, nobody would pay any attention. The trouble is, what he did was quantitative, not qualitative. What Jeffrey did is nothing in comparison to the rapes and the forceful things which people did. Jeffrey had to do with a bunch of women who were totally complicit. For years, they came there, time and time and time again, and if there was only one of them who did it, no one would have noticed, except he made an industry of it. And why did he make an industry out of it? Because Jeffrey was a very, very, very sick man. For some reason, that doesn't get understood. Did you ever hear of nymphomania? Do you know what that is?
Little editor's note here. Yes, I do.
Stupid, Brace.
Vaguely, yes.
What do you mean vaguely? Everybody knows what a nymphomaniac is. It's a girl who is insatiable in her sexual appetite, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there are men who are like that, and it's a disease. It's called satyriasis. And Jeffrey was afflicted with that.
I see.
He couldn't help himself.
And this is something...
I know that.
This is something that you observed with him personally as his friend.
At close range.
You saw him struggle with this.
Yes.
I mean, Jeffrey was pathological. That's the thing.
Yeah, but the idea of framing it as an illness is like
amazing.
ridiculous. Also, this is Dr. Freud over here, by the
Yeah.
way, it's like, this is not a thing that's like diagnosed. This is not a thing anymore.
Really? There's no nymphomaniacs or satyriasis men?
I mean, I'm sure that there are people that like have issues with this, but don't we know? I mean, isn't it normally like sex addict?
Yeah, I mean, I've known people who I would probably describe as sex addicts, and like, I don't think that they.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I went to rehab, and I went to rehab
right.
with people with like mental illnesses and stuff who were mostly there for that. And yeah, there was people there who were basically addicted to sex. They were addicted to like jacking off and stuff too, just like all kinds of weird, like they couldn't help themselves. That doesn't really seem to me like what Jeffrey had. I mean, he had this like need to do it a few times a day, but his was like, these people didn't have the sex urge with children, you know? Like they were just, it was anything.
Okay, let's get back to this because there's some good little bits in here.
And were there any other moments like that where you became aware of things Jeffrey was doing?
Yes, yes, yes.
Would you care to share any of those details?
Yeah, one time. The point is, Jeffrey was a sick man. Like, people are sick with all kinds of diseases of every kind, especially behavioral ones. There are all kinds of nuts running around. They get guns, they kill people, and all that kind of stuff due to behavioral aberrations.
It's interesting to hear from someone who knew Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, I knew him quite well for years and years and years and years and years.
Who was bringing in the perspective that he was a sick individual, that he couldn't help
I
himself.
observed that Jeffrey Epstein was a very important person in the scientific world. Jeffrey brought science to something which nobody else did.
What was that?
He brought together scientists for the sake of trying to inculcate some kind of higher level of scientific thought, even though he himself didn't know shit from Shinola about science. He never knew nothing about anything. Nevertheless...
How do you think he got so successful if he didn't know anything? That's one big question around Jeffrey Epstein.
No. He didn't know anything about science.
Okay.
He knew plenty about how to make money.
What were some of his passions in science? What did he talk to you about the realm of science?
Jeffrey, how do you put this? Jeffrey came into the concept of thought and science and all with no knowledge whatsoever about anything. He really didn't know a goddamn thing. I don't even believe that he taught math. I can't. Oh, Jeffrey once told me that he studied math with the Unabomber. Did you know that?
Really?
Yes, Jeffrey told me that he studied math at UCLA with the Unabomber, who was the math teacher. Okay, so we gotta just, for a second, pause the scene.
Jeffrey didn't go to UCLA.
Well, neither did Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was a professor at UC Berkeley.
Uh-huh.
So I could see how...
Well, and it was in the 60s, right?
Yeah, I believe that it was like 3 years. Yeah, I think it was like 66 to 69.
Yeah, Jeff would have been a little young then.
Well, so, okay.
Okay.
You got to get weird on aliens. Now I want to get a little weird on Jeff.
Absolutely.
So Here's my question. It's okay. So I think it's totally believable that this like foppish, crazy old man got mixed up about UCLA and UC Berkeley.
Yeah, totally.
Totally believable.
Absolutely. I do it all the time.
No, you don't. But people have said that Jeffrey was like a math genius.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I mean, he
And-
must have been to get hired at Dalton when he was 20.
Well, okay. So if Jeffrey was studying with Ted Kaczynski, that would have it could have been when he was 16.
You think so at UC Berkeley?
Well, Jeffrey
like-
would have been 16 when Ted Kaczynski was at Berkeley.
Yeah.
So this is possible.
Do you think that maybe Epstein was such like a math genius and such like an amazing physicist and possibly was helping out in some nuclear or neutron based projects, but he also had this terrible addiction and lifestyle?
I mean-
the government may have supplied him with these lavish lifestyle in order to keep him
I
satiated.
don't know. It just sounds so crazy because then you read stuff that quotes Jeffrey talk. I mean, it's like he's like a total moron.
Yeah, like on the when he's like talking these dinners and like, what does this have to do with pussy?
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine Steven Pinker, him just screaming that in Steven Pinker's face. Totally sober, by the way. Epstein was totally sober.
That's true. That's another like funny thing to keep in mind.
Yes, and he had he did. I mean, he here he's so great at science and stuff and math, and then he's like, I want to freeze my dick.
Well, here's the other thing, is that I don't know how much you know about Ted Kaczynski,
Not enough, I guess.
but you know about his like how he was part of a lot of experimental work with the U.S. government.
Absolutely, yes.
And our friend Jeffrey also has some experience with the U.S. government.
I mean, it's there's a few too many connections here to feel safe. Also, UC Berkeley has some ties to Los Alamos as well.
They do. They
And
very
to the-
much do.
Yeah, and to the UC, and to the government. I mean,
Yeah.
and there's a reason that there's signs in the Berkeley border that says Berkeley is a nuclear-free zone. It's to protect our sweet Liz.
Yes.
But yeah, it is a little, let's say, troublesome.
Yeah. So I do think it's like, I don't know, maybe this art guy is crazy, but that's like I mean, also Jeffrey could be lying.
Well, here's the other, yeah, Jeffrey was a fan, did tell some fantastic tales. The other thing, though, is he mentions earlier that he met him in the early 70s. How was Epstein at Jimmy Goldsmith's house in the early 70s, which, if we're being generous, ends at 74, because he didn't start teaching at Dalton until 1974. And why would Jimmy Goldsmith, this hugely powerful man, have Epstein at his house even when he was teaching at Dalton? So this article really has to be read to be believed. I mean, it is one of the greatest pieces of art that has come out since this whole Epstein kerfluffle came to light.
Maybe it's quite long, but maybe we can just go to the end because it gets really, really funny at the end and
Absolutely.
really weird. So what's funny is at the end, Pivar starts freaking out and he starts to kind of backtrack a bunch.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I shouldn't have been talking to you. I shouldn't have said this. But he keeps insisting that Jeffrey is like diseased.
Sick, yeah.
Yeah. And that no one is really,
No one went to the island. Nobody knew.
and that his affliction isn't being discussed scientifically.
But he also gets a little scared at the end.
Yes. He says, I know it's all very interesting, but I'm just realizing something. I've just gotten myself into terrible trouble, and everyone who knows is going to be mad at me. Why the hell did I pick up the phone?
I appreciate you giving me your perspective on this, and
No, you don't. You're going to misinterpret everything I just said, and you're about to get me into big time trouble. I had no idea of what the hell Jeffrey was doing in all the years I knew him until it became clear, and then I divorced myself from having anything to do with him. But before that happened, for years and years and years, I watched Jeffrey do all kinds of interesting and amazing things, scientifically and so on.
yeah, and you said from the very beginning, and I understand that, and I appreciate you giving me your perspective. The fact that you heard that story firsthand from Maria.
No, you don't. I'm mad at myself for even talking to you. What's the name of your publication? This is where he starts to kind of lose it.
Yeah, and he goes down and he just starts being like, why the fuck did I pick up the phone? I'm going to sue you. Like, and the guy tries to actually give him money
Yes.
to maybe not print this.
Yeah, so there's a lot in here. It's pretty good.
Yeah. At the end, he basically threatens to sue if his words are distorted. And so the author very smartly just prints this, what seems like verbatim.
Yes.
Let's just read the last two questions.
Okay.
I appreciate you giving me your perspective on this.
No, you don't. You're a journalist. Journalists don't appreciate nothing. They're like lawyers.
I'm insulted, but that's okay. All right, well, you have a great night.
Okay, have a nice evening. You've ruined mine.
And that was by Leland Nally. It's in Mother Jones, called Jeffrey Epstein, My Very, Very Sick Pal.
But I just think that, like, the nice little takeaway beyond the bunk science and this thing about the Unabomber that I'm very interested in is that, perhaps we're not understanding Jeffrey's disease properly.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a sick man. Well, he's definitely sick with the sickness of death right now. The ultimate sickness.
Yes.
But, after this Celona connections, I'm not so sure.
What do you mean?
Well, Celona, again, as we were talking about, was the person who had the only photo of Jeffrey Epstein's quote-unquote body.
Oh, so you're back on Freaky Friday?
I'm back on Freaky Friday. I don't think Epstein's dead.
Oh, shit.
I think he's in New Mexico.
No!
If it is correct that a fundamental element of human nature is the need for creative work or creative inquiry, then of course it will follow that a decent society should maximize the possibilities for this fundamental human characteristic to be realized. That means trying to overcome.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Barstool Sports.
Grace, you don't know anything about
the
sports.
only podcast that is solely for pedophiles.
That's true, actually. They're from Boston, right?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Miss Maxwell. My name is Brace.
Is it?
Well, no. My name is Isabel Maxwell, Ghislaine's sister.
Oh.
I'm Brace. That is
Liz.
and our producer, Young Chomsky. We will see you in hell.
On the flip side. Bye.